were to go and put ourselves on another planet, which planet do you think it would be? Do you think it'd be Mars, or would it be a Proxima B?
So there are two planets that are closest to us, and in principle could have life on them, or we could imagine going there and changing conditions such that we could live there. They are Mars and Venus on the two sides of the Earth. Mars used to have an atmosphere and probably had conditions similar to Earth early on in its life, but then because it's 10 times less massive than the Earth, it couldn't hold on to its atmosphere, so the atmosphere evaporated, and then it lost the potential for liquid water on its surface, because you can't have liquid water unless there is an atmospheric pressure. And so even if there was life on Mars, it couldn't continue. There was no liquid water available. And the Perseverance mission will actually get there in February 2021, in a few weeks, actually. And we'll figure out whether there was, or maybe there is some left over signatures of life in the Martian soil. And so that would be very exciting, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the results from this mission. But then going there for us, for humans, would require a lot of adaptation, because just standing on the surface of Mars without an atmosphere, without a strong magnetic field that Mars doesn't have, we will be exposed to energetic particles, cosmic rays, that could damage. Within a year, you will have a substantial damage to the cells in your brain, and you need protection from that. And one way to protect our bodies is to go underground, to go into a cave, or to build some infrastructure that will protect us. There is not enough attention given to that. So just sending humans to Mars without proper protection would be irresponsible. It's sort of like a death sentence. You don't want to do that. So we need to come up with solutions to protect people that go there. But potentially it's a place that we could modify such that we could live there. And you can imagine not necessarily going to a planet. You can put some platform in space. You know, we started in the jungles of Africa, and we ended up in apartment buildings in cities. That's a big leap over a period of 100,000 years. I don't see the leap from an apartment building, you know, in a city in Manhattan to going to space as big as the leap from Africa to an apartment building, you know. So we could do it. It will require some time, but, you know, 100,000 years is a huge period, you know, over which we will have technologies that are far superior to what we have now. So I'm quite optimistic that we could adapt to living in space, but it will take some time. And then Venus right now on the surface has, you know, it went through greenhouse effect, and the surface is extremely hot. It cannot sustain liquid water. You cannot live on the surface of Venus. There was some suggestion that maybe there is life in the clouds of Venus. So the only way for us to inhabit Venus would be to terraform it, to change the conditions such that it's not as hot as it is. But then, of course, we can go to Proxima B. We can go to another star. The nearest star is Proxima Centauri, and it has a habitable planet next to it. And that planet is so close to the star that it has a permanent day side and a permanent night side. And my daughters say that the strip that separates those two sides is would have the highest real estate value, because it will be a permanent sunset strip. Ooh. And have a house there, you can see the sunset forever.
For dummies like myself who've never heard of Proxima B or Proxima, the other one, can you explain where they are and what they are?
Yeah, Proxima Centauri is a member of a 3-star system that is the closest to the sun right now. I mean, it will continue to be the closest star system to us for about 100,000 years. So every 100,000 years or so, there is a new star coming closest to us, and then it's passing. And right now, Proxima Centauri is the nearest, and it's actually a dwarf star that is only 12% of the mass of the sun. So it's much fainter. Most of the stars are much smaller and fainter than the sun. So we live next to an unusual star. Most of the stars are like Proxima Centauri. And it has roughly half the surface temperature that the sun has. Only 3,000 degrees Kelvin compared to almost 6,000 that the sun has. And therefore, it emits mostly infrared light. The sun emits mostly visible light. That's why our eyes are tuned to visible light. But the creatures, if there are any creatures on the habitable planet next to Proxima Centauri, they should have infrared eyes, which would be very strange for us to see, actually. And if there is any grass growing there, it will be dark red. So if you think about interstellar travel agencies designing trips, if most of the living creatures are living near dwarf stars that are the most common, they are used to dark red grass. And they will never come to a planet like ours that offers green grass. That will not be a desirable tourist destination because they don't like this color. They enjoy having a vacation on a dark red grass, and that may explain why we haven't seen any visit us.
Can you explain a little bit more? What would the eyes of the beings on that planet look like? Why would they be? What would an infrared eye look like?
I don't know. It would look shocking to us. It would look very different than our eyes. So our eyes were developed over time to take advantage of most of the light produced by the sun, which is visible light. But if you are next to a star that produces mostly infrared radiation, then evolution would lead you to be sensitive to that kind of light. This is the kind of light you get from warm objects, like soldiers have those goggles that are sensitive to infrared radiation at night. When at night there is not much visible light because you are on the other side of the earth where the sun is not around and but objects are warm enough to emit infrared radiation, and you can see them with these goggles. That's what people that have infrared goggles can see the heat emitted by bodies that are warm, and that's the kind of infrared radiation that the star Proxima Centauri is mostly emitting. So, of course, if we had goggles, infrared goggles, we would see that radiation very clearly. But those animals, creatures that may be born there, they have those sensors, infrared sensors, that they are born with, because that gives them an evolutionary advantage. The reason we have visible light eyes is because it gives us an advantage. We can survive better if we see the light from the sun because it's reflected off objects, so we can protect ourselves. If there is something endangering us, we can avoid that danger by seeing that object. And that's why we have sensitivity to visible light, which is the most common type of light near the sun. But if we were next to Proxima Centauri, it would not offer us much advantage, and then probably we would not survive. And animals that have infrared eyes would survive because they can see the danger. If there is another animal coming to eat them, they would be able to escape because they're sensitive to infrared light, which is the most common form of light in their environment.